Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 39 of the Photoshop Show. Tonight is a very special show because our special guest is Jeffrey Tranberry, and Jeff is a senior product manager for digital imaging at Adobe Systems. That's right, he's the guy from Adobe, and he's also the chief consumer advocate for Adobe, and so that means he's the guy to talk to with your questions, and he's right here for you to talk with on the Photoshop Show. You can do that by posting questions in our chat room, and if you go to the event for the show on the Photoshop Show G+ page, you'll see the URL for the chat room. How are you, Jeff?
Doing good, doing good.
Thanks so much for joining us. It's really nice. I know you're so busy.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a little late here in Minnesota, but it's not too late, and hopefully I can keep up with you guys.
Well, I bet some people are surprised to know that you're in Minnesota because people think that Adobe is in San Jose. That's
right. We have a small office here in Minnesota. It's all engineers. I would say about 70% of the Lightroom development team is here in Minnesota, and probably about 20-25% of the Photoshop engineering team here is in Minnesota as well. So it's an all engineering group. There's about 40 or 50 of us here at this office.
Well, these days it kind of doesn't matter where anybody is, right? We're all working remotely.
That's true, yeah. We have a few guys that are spread out. We have a person that's actually in Denver near you. We have another guy that's in Florida. We have some guys in Boston, a guy down in San Diego, Seattle, you name it.
Well, I wish you'd make that Denver office bigger. That would be great. So tell me what you do at Adobe.
Well, I can give you a little bit of history of how I got started doing what I do and then kind of go into what my current role is. So I worked on the Photoshop development team for the past, well, I've been at Adobe for 12 years, and for the first 10 years I worked on the product development teams. I started off doing web technologies, image ready, safe for web. Then I moved over into more of the Photoshop team, and some of the early versions of Photoshop, me and another guy that had worked on image ready added the ability to select multiple layers, and then we added smart objects, smart filters, you know, on down through the list over the years. In more recent years, I did the helped with the 64-bit port for Photoshop on Mac and Windows.
And well, wait, when you say you did them, so you were writing the code.
I'm not a code writing person. I was a quality engineer, and so we have teams that are made up of developers and QE and product managers, and we all collaborate on designing, coming up with the features, what they're going to look like, work with the UX designers, and so it's our job to design and test and implement features in such a way that they make sense and work well for our customers.
Oh,
and that's
always been my passion. So you're the guy that speaks English, right?
Yeah, I'm the interpreter between the guys that are super brainiac people, but when they talk to you, it's like blurp 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 blurp, and I can say, what they really want to do is just click on this button, have it do what they want it to do, and so I'm good at talking to engineers. I'm good at talking to customers, and I'm the interpreter.
That's a really important job, and some of those features you said you worked on are really amazing. Like Image Ready. Image Ready was where I got started, if you remember, back when. In the books about Photoshop and Image Ready for the web with Linda. And you were so helpful then. We didn't know each other very well, but I remember your name as being the guy that answered my
question. I remember exchanging emails way back when, about variables and rollover states and all that other sort of stuff, and a lot of that technology came over to Photoshop. And layer comps is essentially the state model from Image Ready. The ability to select more than one layer in Photoshop is a function of sort of these design models that we came up with in Image Ready, to create UI. The ability to select more than one layer was instrumental towards designing images for the screen, and so a lot of that technology came over into Image Ready based on stuff that we had learned from developing Image Ready back in the day.
Well, that's really neat. So you were doing all that to start, and then what? You were starting to tell us?
Well, yeah, I'd always had this relationship with customers, and I was always very active on our forums. We had a pre-release program, and you talked a little bit about that. I work with a lot of authors who talk with customers a lot and have their own ideas. Like, it'd be really great if Photoshop could do that. And I was like, oh yeah, tell me about that. And so I would listen to people and say, yeah, that is a really, really interesting way. I never thought, someone would use Photoshop in that way, but it's interesting. So let me talk to an engineer and see what we can do. And so that sort of morphed into, as social media started to come into play, branching out a little bit more and listening to customers on a broader spectrum. And I wanted to bring that sort of feeling that we had during the beta and alphas, talking with people like you and Jeff Shiwi and Bruce Fraser back in the day, and all these guys that are sort of luminaries in the Photoshop world, expand that sphere of influence to all types of people. And so, I started using Twitter, I started using Facebook a lot. We started a site on Photoshop.com that lets people request features now and report bugs. And so what we can do is take that data, bring it back to our engineers, and make a case and say, hey, look, people really want to do this with Photoshop. Let's look at this and see how we can solve this problem or this idea or this workflow scenario for our customers. And that's been extremely gratifying. And so at a certain point, they just said, well, you should just be doing that 100% of your time. Can you do it for all of our products? And so now I do it for all of digital imaging. I got Lightroom, Photoshop, Elements, Revel, Photoshop.com, everything that's under the digital imaging umbrella at Adobe is sort of my turf in terms of talking to customers and bringing that information back to the team.
And so, do you have any help with that, or it's just you?
It's mainly me. The product managers all help. Tom Hogarty is a name that you probably hear a lot. Brian O'Neill Hughes is another one. Zorana Gee, Stephen Nielsen. And then I have a whole cadre of people from support who also help. So I'm trying to create synergy between the people that support our products, the people that develop our products, and the people that use our products. So everyone sort of has a shared language, shared knowledge, and at the end of the day, the goal is to have customers be more successful with our products, raise the quality bar, and really make useful tools that people enjoy using. One of the measurements is active use. How often are people using our products? And we love it when people use our products. Photoshop, if you look at data, it's the application that most customers use, whether it's in the film industry, photography industry, web design, right on down the list. It's print production, everything. Right on down the line, each one of those industries, Photoshop is a key part to everyone's workflow. And so, in a lot of ways, Photoshop is a slave to many masters, and that's a good thing for us, because we want people to use our product, and we want it to be an important part to their workflow and be a useful part of their workflow.
So a little bit later, I'd like to get into more detail with you about the new offerings that Adobe has put out for Photoshop and Lightroom, the ways that people can get it, some of the questions people have about it. But right now, I see down at the bottom that we have some guests with us, and I wanted to introduce them to you because these really are people that use Photoshop and Lightroom, and I'm sure they will have questions for you. So just to quickly say, down at the bottom is Ron Clifford, the fellow in the green shirt, and he's my co-host for the show. Ron is a very popular photographer on Google+. He has like 2 gazillion followers. And, right, Ron?
Yeah, close.
So, Ron is like really in there with the people that use the products, at least from a photography standpoint. Next to him is Dave Bell, and Dave is a professor at a college in Napa Valley, information systems, right, Dave?
Yes.
Yeah, so he's approaching it from, more of a scientific aspect, but he's also a hobbyist photographer. And next to him is Erika Thornes, and Erika is someone that we all met here on Google+, who turns out to be a terrific photographer and a user of Photoshop. Where do you see the composites that she makes? I mean, they really put people to, everybody else to shame, really.
Yeah, I'm always, I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to people's work. I would receive a lot of different files from people, and I would pick them apart and see how people were actually using the application. It's like cultural anthropology, going through someone's Photoshop document, seeing how they name their files, or how they group things, and how they organize things, or how they don't name things and how they don't organize things. So it's
or
always
how they
interesting.
flatten things when they shouldn't be.
Yeah, and there's no right or wrong way to use Photoshop. But certainly you learn a lot about people's workflows. Screen designers are obviously work very differently than photographers, and understanding how they use the tools and how they use the layers panel. The layers panel was my baby in Photoshop. I wanted that thing to always hum, be bug-free, and do exactly what you thought it would do when you clicked on a button. And that was my thing. So it's always interesting to see how people use the layers panel.
Oh, it is, and I have some things I can say about that, because I do Elements and Photoshop, and one thing that drives me crazy is how in Elements the options are in the opposite place that they are in Photoshop. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they're at the top.
So but anyway. So, and Erika, you I know are a Lightroom user, and I saw somewhere you were posting on Facebook or Google Plus a couple of weeks ago that you wanted to contact someone from Adobe to ask a question. Right?
Absolutely. So that'll be a good question for later as to why this isn't implemented and how I can, and if it would be too confusing if we did implement it.
Okay.
But in the meantime, I want people to know where they can write if they have a question. So Jeff, where is that? You're Erika. You have a question. Where do you? How do you contact someone, or you, or someone?
Screen share, if you guys don't mind. I'm going to choose desktop and start sharing. So I'm just going to switch over to the browser window here. So this is our community site for reporting problems and sharing ideas. And this is the best place to actually request features or let us know if you have a problem while using our products. And what we can do is, if we have a workaround, we'll provide that. If it's a bug, if we can reproduce it, we'll log it for our engineers to fix. If it's an idea, then a lot of times we can put that into a queue. There's a lot of interest in that, and implement it. And I just pulled up a couple of pages. There's a way to pull up the ideas and see which ones have been completed. And so you can see a lot of people requested support for videos using Revel, the ability to edit the corner radius of shapes and that sort of thing, ability to sync your presets to cloud was highly requested. So there's a lot of things like that, and then also problems. So if there's a bug, there's we show when we fix something, and it's a great way for customers to see where we are at with particular ideas or issues, and it's a great way for us to communicate that we are listening, and that we do make progress on people's ideas. We get a lot of people that say, "Oh, you never implement any ideas that anyone asked for," and it's like, well, here you go. Here's a good place for you to go to see the types of things that we have done and implemented.
And how do people get there? What's the short URL for that?
It's on Photoshop.com. So if you come into it's basically feedback, Photoshop.com, and it'll take you to this URL. Right, like that.
And are there different categories or something?
Yeah, so you can, when you create an idea, I want photo to do that. When you click continue, it'll give you options for completing this. So you set up what your idea is, give it a title that makes sense, and you can tag which products you want to see that feature in, and then you can give it keywords and then post it.
And what's your feedback, so somebody read it or didn't? Anything?
Usually, what I tell people is we read every single post. We don't always reply to them, especially for ideas, just because those generally don't need a reply. For for bugs, we try to understand it and see if we can reproduce it in-house. And so we'll ask questions, what OS are you on? Are you up to date? And that sort of thing. And I have a lot of, going back to sort of who I am and what I do. I'm out on Twitter. This is my Twitter handle, Tranberry. I talk with a lot of people, almost up to 11,000 tweets now. And then I have my blog, so I post information when updates are available. I also have keep a running list of all the free learning resources that we have available to customers that use our products. Certain number of help documents. Why doesn't a lot of people get a new camera and they're like, well, how do I get camera support for this new camera with my version of Photoshop? And so this explains how to do that. And then sort of going down where we were going before, basic troubleshooting steps. I'll run people through these basic troubleshooting steps to just make sure, that they aren't reporting a bug that's been fixed in an update, that they don't have the update installed. So there's some basic things that people can do before they post something, just so that we know that they're up to date and are reporting a bug that's in the current version. And then I also
let me just say that this is an amazing resource. You should write this down, everybody, or put it, make a bookmark, because the blog is amazing.
Yeah, this is a URL. If you just do a search for Jeff Tranberry, it's one of the first hits on Google, but it's my digital imaging crawl space. And so, if you have questions about upgrading to Photoshop CC, I have a lot of questions answered there as well. So, that's how people, interact with me, using my personal assets. There's also a Photoshop team blog, and we all contribute to this. You see Tom Hogarty's name associated with this particular blog post, but we all post content to here that we think customers would be interested in. Generally, what we post on our Photoshop.com blog is more how-tos and product announcements, tutorials, inspirational type things, and that sort of thing. And I use my blog more for sort of technical minutia, things that would maybe be more interesting to people who are trying to solve a problem or a particular workflow or that sort of thing. So this is the Photoshop team blog, and there's this is the URL for that. It's photoshop.com, blogspot.photoshop.com. And then there's also one for the Lightroom team, which is the Lightroom Journal. And Shared is the product manager for Lightroom with Tom. Tom sort of passed the torch to Shared. Shared's a Minnesota guy as well, but he lives in the Bay Area now. And so
what is Tom now then?
Tom is now my manager, and he's really focused on customer engagement and social media as well. So Adobe is very interested in engaging with our customers across all the places that our customers hang out and use. So doing something like this Google Plus Hangout is something that like Julianne Cost, who is on my team, she's one of my teammates in product management. She's an evangelist. She primarily focuses on Lightroom and Photoshop, and of course the Russell Browns of the world. So those people are also reaching out to customers through their blogs and through their training and doing hangouts and doing live events and all that sort of thing. And so it's just very important for both the Photoshop and the Lightroom teams to be very interact very closely with our customers. We're always out full force at events like Photoshop World. Tom showed off this Lightroom mobile solution, and they were pulling customers into a room to show them, how this new product that's very early development, how it may work, and then find out what people would like to see in the application. They brought all that information back to the product teams, similarly to what I do through social media, and we sort of.
I was gonna try and find a spot to interject there when you were talking about Photoshop World. I was down there, and unfortunately we didn't bump into each other and talk, but two things happened there that were really quite really impressed me. And one was that Adobe responded. We heard during the keynote that Adobe had announced, as we saw on the screen you were showing just recently there, the $9.95 special to holders of Adobe CS3 and above. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. This is the program. Essentially, it's designed to appeal to photographers, people that were using Photoshop and have since integrated Lightroom into their workflows. It's sort of a unique Photoshop's sort of a unique product in the Creative Cloud line, even in the Creative Suite, where
yeah, and I know there was a lot of people that were a little, when it was first announced, there was a lot of misunderstanding, and I think there still is, but a lot of people in the photography side of things, especially like I have a very large community of photographers that
Yep.
that I engage with, and there was a lot of feeling that maybe Adobe hadn't been listening to us.
Right.
And this announcement kind of demonstrates that no, in fact, you guys are listening. And not only that, the one other thing that impressed upon me at Photoshop World, and then I'll let you get right back to that, was that you had engineers right on location that we could talk to about concerns we had or features we might want, and you kind of opened that up to the public and said, here, we want to hear from you right now, right here.
Yep, that's right. And so we had, for people that weren't there, we had a little booth set up. We had a couple engineers set up right there on the show floor. It was kind of a weird situation. This is the first time we tried it.
Yeah.
We put this, they were sitting in front of their computers, coding away. They had, sort of like this velvet red rope around them. But you could, go up and talk to Steven or Jackie, who was my QE manager on Photoshop, and share what your idea was. And then, when the engineers were at a point where they were, sort of could take a break from coding, they would come talk to you and, figure out, what they could do and whether or not they could implement that feature or not. And so it was just a great way for people to meet people on the team, share their ideas, have a conversation about how the product works, why it works the way it does, their ideas for how it could work better, and it's really good for those guys to get out as well. It's fine and dandy that people like Tom, Shared, Brian, and I go out, but engineers get a lot out of talking directly to customers as well, and so we try to get a variety of team members in front of customers to learn from them and empathize with the types of tasks that they're trying to achieve, and really come up with solutions for customers. And
so I just want to say that this isn't just an ad. I mean, this isn't just kind of like Adobe saying how great we are. I know these guys. These are like really good guys, and it's not just this year and this particular wonderful guy that we're talking to. Ever since I've known this company, there's always been multiple people that were more than willing to share, to take their time, out of their workday to answer questions. One time I had to do a course on new features in Photoshop CS something, 4 or 5, and I got on a plane and I went there and I just walked in and everybody let me go into their office and talk to them and spend time. It was so nice, and that's why I love Adobe, and it's why I love Google, because Google is the same in that.
It's the same, you're right.
Yeah.
Yep. And you're right, it's not an ad, it's our experience. It's what we're dealing with every day.
Right.
One of the questions, I guess, that came up, and I guess we'll kind of get right back to what we first talked about with the $9.95 thing, to kind of demystify things to get people on track. That was for existing customers.
Correct.
But for those that didn't have a previous version of Photoshop, where are they at? What do they do?
So those customers can still subscribe to Photoshop as a single application membership, and that's still $19.95 for those people. We originally had a $19.99 deal for the single app membership for CS3 Plus customers as well, but that was a first-year promo. And the thing that's different about the Photoshop photography program is this price is the ongoing price. Now, we're not saying that the price won't ever go up, because we need to accommodate for things like inflation and that sort of thing. But it won't go up to $19.99 at the end of the year. So $9.99 is the ongoing price. And so this is a way to, it's a loyalty program to customers that have paid full price for previous versions of our products on a perpetual license. And it's a great way for them to get on board with Creative Cloud and experience, sort of these rapid updates that we've been able to do. We released three chunks of features to customers. The most recent one was pretty heavy into screen design with Generator, but we have another update coming in a few weeks that should have, or not a few weeks, coming up later this fall that will also have feature-bearing updates for Photoshop. So, this kind of goes back to sort of our development process, and people ask why are we switching to this model, and one of the reasons that we're doing it is because the industry is moving so much faster now. Apple is releasing new OSs every 12 months. So is Microsoft. They're both releasing new hardware and devices at the same clip. And so for us to respond and sort of keep up with that industry acceleration, we decided that we wanted to be able to release updates on an ongoing basis. And the new model allows for us to do that. And then just to go a little bit back into the history of Photoshop, the way we used to develop things, or the way we used to develop Photoshop, was we would, at the end of CS, we would start on the next version, and we would have 18 to 24 months in order to come up with features, develop them, fix all the bugs, and ship it. And we used a development model that is sort of has a bad name now, but is sort of the way that desktop software was developed in the past, was something called the Waterfall Model. So you slam all these features into a release, and then you spend 3 or 4 months just fixing bugs, and then you ship it after 18 months or 2 years. And that model just doesn't allow for a lot of flexibility. As soon as you're done, you have to start over again and do another one of those. And the team's slowly been, I would say around CS1, CS2, somewhere in that time frame, we started moving to an agile development process. And so what we were doing was we were developing features sort of in sandboxes, and we would develop that feature until it was extremely polished, put it in the app, and then the app would be more or less ready to ship at that stage. And what was happening is we were developing features that we knew we wanted to ship, but we couldn't ship them until 12 months later or 18 months later when we finally shipped. And so for us, it really stunk because we wanted to get these really cool features out to customers a lot quicker. And so, the combination of, the industry acceleration around, OS and mobile OS development and devices is really in tandem with sort of this development model change, allowed us to deliver features quicker and in actually a higher state of quality, I think.
And I think this is not something that's unique to Adobe in this shift. We're just more and more seeing it. I guess the term we use in software as a service.
Mm-hmm.
We're not buying It's not that we're buying a product anymore. It's we are essentially buying, on an ongoing service, like you buy your cable service, your internet service, so you're buying your software service, or month by month.
Yeah, it is.
Features change much more quickly, and you don't leave people behind on old versions. It makes sense in this world, I think.
Yeah, it's the world's changed, and so we're trying to adapt to the way that the world has changed, the way that our customers use our products, and the way that we deliver our products. And a lot of it has to do with that agility, but also a lot more of our world is connected, and that's if you have time, go back and watch the Photoshop World keynote. A lot of it was talking about how social media and devices have made our world a lot more connected, and so tying both of our desktop applications to the cloud and to mobile devices and mobile applications is a huge theme within that keynote. And we definitely think it's where our customers are go, where the industry's going, and it's going to increase collaboration, it's going to increase exposure, and there's all kinds of benefits to creative people through working in a largely collaborative environment.
So I know this is a big change for Adobe, and it's cool that you're doing it. But I think that there are people who have questions about how it works,
Sure.
and I'm one of those. And on behalf of the viewers, I have a couple of questions. I wonder, can we
Sure.
get specific about?
Lay 'em on me.
Okay, so so what, as I understand, the new program, $9.99 a month, which is such a
Yep.
great deal, $120 a year, gets you, kind of rents you, Photoshop and Lightroom and some space on Adobe servers, as well as Behance Pro Portfolio site. But mostly people are interested in Photoshop and Lightroom, right? So
Yep.
but here's a question. What if you didn't own Photoshop, just Photoshop CS3 or later, but you
Yep.
owned one of the creative suites, so that you had not only Photoshop, but InDesign and Dreamweaver, and you paid even more money to get that than you would have for just Photoshop itself? Are you eligible for this deal?
Not currently. Right now it's this offer is designed specifically for photographers that had owned Photoshop. Not so much for people that were multi application people. And Creative Cloud is still sort of the place for those people that are using applications like Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Premiere, After Effects. And so this is designed more for people that were just into photography workflows. And so that's why they made this Photoshop only. Now, there's been a lot of interest from people. Maybe they're people that were in a creative suite that maybe don't use all the applications like they thought they would. And so there is some interest from customers in this program that had previously purchased a creative suite. And I don't have an answer for them now, but it's something that I've been hearing, and it's definitely something that I've brought up with my managers and whatnot. There's also, it's not available to educational customers currently. It's not available to Elements customers currently. It's not currently available to people who just own Lightroom either. And there's been an incredible amount of interest from those customers as well. And frankly, I think there's a lot of opportunities there to fit the right product with the right people. And certainly people are saying that this product, Photoshop and Lightroom together, is fitting their needs. And so
Yeah.
I'm definitely having the conversation with people internally, and hopefully my hope is that we can open it up to more people in the future.
Yeah, good.
I think that's great, and I really would push it, Jeff, for Lightroom users who don't have Photoshop. They need it.
Absolutely.
You know why. And if you want to know, I can go listen to my course on Photoshop and Lightroom.
Yeah.
Hey, you're preaching to the choir. You're preaching to the choir. And I wish I was King Adobe and I could snap my fingers and do it tomorrow, but ultimately,
I thought you were.
I like to think I am, but when the rubber hits the road, Adobe's a big place, and I can never promise anything, but I can never promise anything specifically, but I can promise that these are the types of things, or the types of things I hear from customers, and I promise you that I will make sure that they are heard by people in power that can make those decisions.
And that's really important for us to know as a general community, is that we are being heard, even if every request doesn't see the light of day. Like, obviously you can't make every change everybody wants, but that the consensus would be that our specific needs are being looked at and considered and often put into the software and into the promotions.
Oh, certainly, yeah, and we try to get it right, and sometimes we don't get it right, and we always, I think in general, Adobe is people are open to making improvements, tailoring things so that they work better for our customers, and this is just one example of it. And it's not to say that there aren't additional things we can do to improve the experience around Creative Cloud and its offerings. And the team is working on some really cool cloud-based features, some of which were demoed at Photoshop World.
Yeah.
There are things happening. I just can't always talk about things until I have examples like the Photoshop keynote or the stuff that we post as fixed or implemented on our feedback site.
So did anybody else down there have questions about the Photoshop photography program where you get this bundle together? You guys get that? Cool. How about another question related to that, which is,
Yep.
I've got more than 2 computers.
Yep.
What do I do?
So there's something actually really cool with Creative Cloud that a lot of people maybe haven't picked up on. 2 things. First thing is Creative Cloud is a cross-platform license. If you've ever purchased Photoshop or Flash or InDesign and you've had a PC and a Mac, you had to buy 2 licenses for that. So it was $2,000 for two copies of Photoshop, one for Mac and one for Windows. And the other aspect, so Creative Cloud is a cross-platform license, as is Lightroom. So you can install that on 2 Macs, 2 Windows, or 1 Mac and one Windows machine. And in fact, you can install it on as many computers as you want, but you can only sign in and use it on 2 of those systems at a time.
I have it on my laptop. I have for travel. I have it on my desktop for editing. And then when my kids use it for school, I have it on their iMac.
Yep.
And so I just make sure that before I travel that my laptop is signed in and registered.
Yep, exactly. What used to happen was, let's say, you fried a computer and you had activated on it. You'd have to call up Adobe and say, hey, Adobe, I lost my activation, because you signed in on a third, or you tried to activate on a third computer using our products previously. With Creative Cloud now, it just says, hey, you're trying to, sign in on this new computer. You're already using 2 activations. Would you like me to automatically sign you out from the other systems and allow you to work on this machine? You say yes, and you're off and running. So people shouldn't have to contact us anymore around lost activations and that sort of thing. Yeah. It's actually really slick. In my testing world, I have 5 or 6 computers that I install our applications on, and it's a mix of Windows and Macs, and some of them are at home, some of them are in my office here in Arden Hills, Minnesota. And when I want to use it, I just it gives me a warning, says sign in. I just type in my username and password. Bam, I'm going. I don't have to remember a serial number. I don't have to keep a spreadsheet with all my serial numbers or register my serial numbers and log into adobe.com to find my serial number. It's just my Adobe ID and my password. And I think that's kind of a sleeper hit from Creative Cloud for me anyways.
So just to clarify, we're talking, you can use it essentially on an unlimited number of computers as long as no more than 2 are activated at a time. Is that?
That's correct. And there was some slight variation in the EULA for Creative Cloud where we basically said that previously you could only use it on 1 computer at a time, and now you personally can install and use it at 2 computers simultaneously. So if you want to run automation on one system while you're retouching individual files on another, that's allowed in the EULA. Not that that was ever enforceable, but it's just something that we recognize and
that's
have.
Nice. Is that something that really does actually happen?
I love it.
Waiting for those an automated batch process to go through, and you want to work on something else.
Well, absolutely.
I have a question regarding something I ran into just now, actually in the last short while, because now I have the Creative Cloud, but just before I got the Creative Cloud, I bought Lightroom 5.
Mm-hmm.
I upgraded from Lightroom 4 and bought Lightroom 5. What happens to that license that I just bought? Because I have a different license for the cloud. Is that license transferable? Can I give that to my son?
You absolutely could. There's a forum on adobe.com, so if you want to sell that perpetual license to somebody, you can. Otherwise, you can keep it. If you want to have it on 4 computers, so you could, have Lightroom installed on 4 computers because you would have 2 activations with your Lightroom 5. The other thing, if you had purchased your Lightroom within the last 30 days, our return policy is, if you purchase from Adobe.com, you can return your product within 30 days for a full refund. So if you're in that situation, just do a search for refund on Adobe.com, and it'll bring up the how-tos.
Yeah, well, that's really good to know because that's something that came up for me, and I'm sure it comes up for other people as well, wondering if that license is transferable, and if I had wanted to either sell or give it to someone else, is that something I can do and still be within kind of the rules of software, right?
Yep. Yeah, because you hadn't used that, that Lightroom 5 as an upgrade path to something, you can sell that. That path or that license out.
Jeff, do you want to stop screen sharing for a minute so we can see your face?
Sure.
It's kind of weird to look at your Twitter.
I do have to ask a question from Gary M. Mr. Monroe wants to know, he says, when will Lightroom get layers?
When will Lightroom get layers? It's very unlikely that Lightroom will get layers. Lightroom has the notion of local adjustments and adjustment, radial gradients, and adjustment brushes. And you can have as many of those as you want. You can stack them up like layers on your document. But because Lightroom is metadata-driven, it's like a formula, text-based formula for applying adjustments to your image. We don't store any pixel data, so the everything is stored as these metadata edits. So it's very unlikely because it would sort of go against the.
So talking about metadata edits, what would be really helpful to me is I use the gradient. I use the let me see, develop module. Yes. So I use the gradient. Forgot the exact name of it. Tool, and I would like to erase back on that. That wouldn't violate your rules. So
no, it wouldn't. That's actually something that's been requested quite a bit on the feedback site. I think it's a good idea. It just hasn't been something that's been done yet. I think it would be possible, but the engineer.
I can't see why it wouldn't be if you can do the regular adjustments with the regular with the other brush. So.
Yep. I think Katrina Eisman, that was like one of the very first posts to that site was, I want to be able to erase, the skyline from the gradient. That's sort of the use case. You put a gradient in, but you don't want it to affect buildings or something in the foreground, so you want to sort of erase them out through the horizon.
Perfect.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, I have a question of my own.
Yep.
When I was listening to Julian Cost, she was doing one of the seminars at Photoshop World. She did the most amazing thing. Well, she always does the most amazing things, right?
Yeah.
But she did the most amazing thing, something I never considered, and it has to do with the whole UI of Photoshop. Now, I'm sure this goes back and forth and up and down and inside and out, but she had mentioned she creates her workspace, and then, she had mentioned she moves her layers panel, the whole adjustment and layers panel, over beside the tools, and then they're both together, and you save miles and miles and miles over the years of going back and forth from the layers to the tools to the layers to the tools.
Yep.
That's just kind of one little example of a really awkward interface and an unintuitive feel to the whole thing for new people. Is that looked at often, or are you guys? I mean, you might not know, but is that? I mean, Lightroom is much more laid out for the new user. They go in, they see it in steps.
Yep.
They see everything organized. It's easy to use.
Yeah, and anytime we make any change to Photoshop, you're going to get who moved my cheese argument from about 5 million customers. And so we need to be very careful if we make a change in Photoshop.
Yeah, I was even mad you changed the color of it for a while.
Yeah, but you know what? We added a preference because we knew that people would want to be able to change it back, and so that's sort of the game we play. Is we have all these customization options in Photoshop, and sort of going back to I think Ron was saying, we try to listen to people's ideas, and oftentimes some ideas are so esoteric that we would never do them, and I hate to say it, but we would never do that. But there's always the silver lining is Photoshop is extensible, and so you can script things to do things that it can't currently do in order to do some sort of process that or some sort of workflow that you're trying to do. And so while we try to do things, if something's too esoteric for us to implement ourselves, a lot of times you can use our extensibility solutions to implement it yourself, or have someone implement it for you.
Speaking of scripting, something exciting came out today about scripting, I know. Can you just mention quickly what happened today in terms of Camera Raw and Lightroom? Well, Lightroom particularly, 5.2.
You stumped me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, my understanding is Adobe announced 5.2 as being available. It's no longer just a release candidate, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I just downloaded it. Already have it installed.
Yeah, and 8.2.
I thought you were saying that there's some scripting change to the 5.2.
Oh, well, I was, because there is generators, so that made me think of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
The generator. So we just released Camera Raw 5.2, Lightroom 5.2, DNG Converter 5.2, and then we recently released Photoshop 14.1, and then there was some really minor update a day later for a bug that we had in preferences and the thing that enables our GPU support. But 14.1 had this generator feature, and it is one of these things I talked about, the extensibility to have Photoshop do some workflow that's custom to you. So if you have a particular workflow for developing a website and how you want the images exported, Photoshop has this thing called node.js in it, and if you know JavaScript, you can program generator to do the processing of the images the way that you want them to be processed, if the way that we generate them by default isn't the way that you want to do it. So it's extremely customizable, and then it also ties into the Photoshop SDK. We have a number of SDKs, but we have one that allows you to talk across devices using TCP. And you guys maybe remember some of these iPad apps that we had, like Adobe Nav, that uses this Photoshop SDK to talk through TCP to a device from Photoshop. And one of the examples that's posted on the Photoshop.com blog right now is this game developer that has an iOS game running on his iPad, and he has a PSD with all the sprites that are in his game, and so he can change the colors or change the labels on things, and everything automatically updates on the fly in the game while you're playing it. It's insane, the types of workflows that you can do using Photoshop, and the stuff that some of these big production houses that are making games, making movies, products and that sort of thing, they use these extensibility things in Photoshop in order to generate the massive quantities of graphics and assets that are used to build enormous websites, movies, games, and all that sort of things, applications. And so that's sort of what makes Photoshop this great thing, is it is extensible.
Well, I'm sorry, that was my bad, not yours, about confusing the new features in Photoshop with the new features in Camera Raw and Lightroom. Could you say just a word about that and what's new in Lightroom and Camera Raw that's exciting?
I
know, there's so much, right?
Yeah.
I'm out of the loop on the Acr updates. I'm actually
about color smoothing,
ahead because I know something that's going in later that that's really cool, but I can't talk about
You
it.
can't tell us. Yeah. Why did you tell us that?
That
You
makes
told
it
us to
really
tell
hard
us
on
and
us.
you tell us.
I know. It's the curse of being here. I'm at shows and people are like, I'd really like it if Photoshop did this. And I'm always like, I've been doing that for about 6 months.
So
Well,
maybe my need is going to be fixed in the next one.
Maybe
A place people can look to find that
I
stuff
could tell
out.
you, but I'd have to kill you.
Yeah.
Might be worth it.
Yeah. Let me go back there.
If you go to Julianne Koss' blog, she did a great summary of 5.2 and 8.2.
Sure, let's,
Very helpful.
One thing I did notice on there, it said that it's a narrow question. It said that they added support for tethering for the Canon 6D.
yeah.
Just curious if does that work with the Wi-Fi that's built into the 6D?
Currently, I believe it's just through USB. I haven't heard whether they've done anything with the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi would obviously work through a watch folder as a workaround if it didn't work through the Canon SDK at this point. They integrated the new Nikon tethering SDK, which gave D7100 support. So they integrated that, and then the Canon sort of is a all or nothing thing. Nikon is sort of like a plug-in to their SDK, and Canon is just sort of like all the cameras. So you get, a lot of people were asking for 60 and 7100, and that was really cool that they were able to get that into 5.2. But you can see the feature notes here.
Can you talk about that first one, that smoothness affecting it has something to do with smoothing out colors, large blotches of colors, it sounds like. Would that fix banding problems, or?
It should. The other thing it would do is
I'm cheering over here.
yeah, definitely the modeling of color effects in you'd probably see those types of things in low light and in the shadow area.
They seem a lot with the work I do, so I'm happy about that.
Yep. And so
we have a Panasonic Lumix that every time you shoot it getting close to the sun, you get a red blob.
Oh, really?
I'm really looking forward to using that feature on that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
yeah, go on.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say when you're finished, I have a question about a feature I'd like to see in Lightroom, and I'll probably go into the into the link that you had sent earlier to ask about it. So it's hard to describe in words, and it's easy in vision.
Sure. A lot of these things are just sort of refinements to existing tools, and so that's always our goal, is to faster, better, easier, and so a lot of these features sort of fall into that category. A lot of this stuff comes from either the mind of Eric Chan or Thomas Knoll, or trouble images that people send us, saying, hey, I have this problem or this particular need of my image processing, and I think that team is really responsive, and the thing that makes them great is they're all photographers. It's like a requirement in order to work on the team, is you have to use Lightroom, you have to be a photographer. All those guys are just camera and lens geeks. They all make me sick.
Well, I see, one of the things that photography geeks love is the feather control on the spot healing tool. That makes it, I think, better for cloning and healing than it was without that. What do you think?
And we're always, besides, just, making sure that the source falls off at the edges, but, making the algorithms work better. Even, magic features, Lightroom doesn't necessarily use content aware, but tweaking how we find the areas that we use to clone, and making those algorithms more intelligent and process faster is always something.
That's great, because I'm pulling into Photoshop a lot more than I should, just to remove little things.
Yeah, and you're at some you know, Lightroom keeps eking up that, you know, 95, 96,
It
97,
does.
97% because Camera Raw is being so powerful. It's just amazing what those guys do. But you know, it's always nice knowing that you have Photoshop there to you know, take care of, you know, the types of things that Lightroom wouldn't be able to do.
Liquefy.
Yeah.
You know, Photoshop's domain is still in compositing and
Yeah.
and pixel accurate.
Yeah. Well, do you know what I just realized is that we've actually done a show without a demo.
Yeah, we did, because it's just too interesting.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop them to do a demo.
That's got to be a first, I think.
Is that okay with you, Jeff? Do you mind? Because we're
I
almost an
I
hour.
don't mind. You know, I had a little demo lined up. You know, it's sort of a meat and potatoes thing, but you know, I was talking to Jan beforehand. She's like, "You should just talk." And I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
So it's up to you guys. I can keep talking. Otherwise, I could, you know, show this little demo that I had. You know, it's not necessarily a new feature, but you know, it might be something that, you know, would help people understand, you know, layers and certain tools better.
What do you think
I'm
about?
excited.
I was
Want
going
to
to
do
say,
5 minutes of that?
yeah.
I can do that. Should we do that?
Yeah,
Sure.
if you can do it in that amount of time, that'd be a perfect way to finish this off.
Sure. So this is just sort of an old take on creating a selection, creating a mask, and some alternative ways that people, you know, may not be the first way that people would think to do it, but it might actually be an easier way to do it, and then, you know, they could come up with ideas for how this could fit into their workflow. So one of my favorite tools in Photoshop is the background eraser. A lot of people go, "Oh, the background eraser, it's a destructive tool," and blah, blah, blah.
I've heard that a
but
lot.
I'm going to show you a non-destructive way to use the background eraser. And so I have this image here. This is taken by Craig Marble, who's on the Lightroom team, and he showed me this image, and he's like, "God, I'd really like to get rid of these branches in this scene here, but you know, anytime I try to clone on them, it's got this really nice gradient behind it. It just gets all blotted and mottled and whatnot." And so I looked at it, and I came up with this technique to sort of solve it. So the first thing I'm going to do in this image is I'm going to duplicate the background layer. There's a couple ways you can do it. You can drag it to the new layer icon in the layers panel. Otherwise, my favorite is Command Edit. I'm just going to hide the background for right now, just so you can see the effect of using the background eraser. For people that don't know, the background eraser is underneath the eraser tool. The eraser tool is selected by default in the tool panel. So I'm just going to select the background eraser.
Sorry, can I interrupt for 1 sec?
Absolutely.
As you go through this, there's a glitch that hasn't been sorted out with Hangouts. And when you hit the Control key,
Yep.
you will mute yourself. So just be aware when you do a Control and any other function, you'll probably be muted. So try to speak before and after your.
Okay. Very good.
Sorry about
All right.
that.
No problem. So I have the background eraser selected currently. I have just default settings on it, and these are the options for it. And so let's just click on the image and see what the background eraser does. You'll notice there's a plus sign in the center of the tool, and what that's going to do is sample the color that's underneath the plus sign and say, I want to delete the color that's underneath the plus sign, and when I get to a color that's 50% different, stop. And so when I click on this, you'll notice that it erased this area here, but didn't erase this area up here. And this has to do with the setting up here called limits. And
That's
contiguous
crazy cool.
says go until you hit a different color and then stop. Okay, so I'm going to undo that. If I choose discontiguous and I do the same thing, what's going to happen now is it's going to take that blue color away from the whole area until it gets to the edge of the brush. And so all the blue areas, whether or not it got to an edge where the color was 50% different,
I'm in love with this tool.
What's that?
I'm in love with this tool.
It's awesome.
It's incredible. It's just solved a lot of my problems.
Yeah, really
So
good.
it gets better, gets better, gets better. So
I don't know how. This is great.
I want to get rid of the sky, and this will all make sense after I get done here. And so yeah, all good. All right. So now I've completely destroyed this layer because this tool is destructive. But
Right.
let's say I want to turn this into a mask instead of, just blowing away the object or the background there. What I'm going to do is re-enable my background, and in order to make the background into a floating layer that I can add a mask to, I'm just going to delete the lock, and it turns it into a regular layer. Now with the background layer targeted, I want to turn this layer into a layer mask on this layer. So because this layer is selected, I'm going to tell Photoshop to make a new layer with the contents of this layer. All right, so this layer has generated this mask on this layer, and we'll take a look at it. I'm going to show you a keyboard shortcut. If you hold down the Option key.
Hold on a second. So you just dragged that down on top of the layer mask icon?
Yep, I'll do it again.
Completely new thing for me. All right.
Yep.
Love it.
So here's my layer that has
Unselected.
Yep. So I want to have the layer that I want the mask to go on. And then I'm going to drag the layer that I want to create the mask from to the layer icon. Boom. Creates a new mask there. And so now we can inspect this mask and see how nice of a mask or how poor of a mask it is. So I'm just going to Option.
It's also
an Option button.
We couldn't hear you because
I'm just going to Option click on the mask so I can see the contents of the mask and see whether it's a good mask or not. And you'll notice.
Can you repeat that? You'll notice what?
You'll notice that there's some issues here where the erase wasn't complete or whatever up here. And we can fix that by just running an adjustment on it. So I'm just going to do Image. So I have the mask still targeted. Choose Image, Adjustment Levels, or Command L. And I'm going to make it so that these areas aren't gray but black. So I can just drag the slider to the right until my mask is super clean. Okay. I'm going to click OK. And if I Option click the mask again, it'll show the masked result of the composite. And if I want to hide my mask, I can Shift key and click on it. A couple of shortcuts for working with masks.
And how do you reverse the mask? I forgot. I know it's something I should know.
You can just hit Command I to invert it.
Okay, Command I. Okay, thank you.
Yep, Command I, yep. And so kind of at this state where I can do some more work. I can get rid of the tree branches now if I want to. And probably an easier way to do that would just be hit Option again. And we know that paint with black, it's going to mask out that area because this is masking out the sky. So if I paint black where these branches are, it's going to hide that. So I'm just going to hit X to swap these colors so that I'm painting with black. And now I can, whoops, I want a harder edge brush. So excuse me. Go back to my. I'm getting.
You're cutting out again, Jeff, because you must be holding Option.
Yeah, that piece. So shift brackets will adjust the hardness of it. So I want a hard brush, and now I can come in here and paint out these tree branches. Just do a kind of sloppy job here, but just so you can see results.
Well, thanks to you, I'm going to be the new cool kid on the block. I appreciate this.
Yeah, no problem.
You're already the cool kid.
While you're doing that, I have a question. You know how when you applied that background eraser, you just kind of clicked once? Could
Yep.
you instead click and drag with it to get a different area? You know,
Yeah, you certainly can. I just did it that way just so that you could see the results a little bit better.
right. And I know the answer, but I want people to know
Yeah.
that you can do that. It's not just a click thing. It's you can
Yep.
kind of paint with that eraser tool.
Yep. And I'm just I hit X so I can paint with white, and I don't really need to, mask out these areas. Get rid of that. All right, so we'll go back to our layer. Look at our mask. Looks pretty good. We still have to take care of this guy. We can take care of that with some cloning later. But how am I going to get the sky back in here? Well, I'm going to use that same shortcut, Shift, click on the mask, and I'm going to sample foreground color. It's like the background. Get my white color. Then I'm going to shift click on the mask again. Going to create a new layer Create a new layer in behind it. I'm going to use my gradient tool. And just do something like that. And there's my sky. And I can go in and clean up the rest of this as necessary. So that's sort of
So now, what was the point of taking a sky that looked very similar to that and putting this sky in instead? Was it to remove the sticks, or?
Well, if I were to try to clone out the sticks, you would end up with this sort of modeled gradient instead of a smooth gradient like a sky normally is.
Okay.
So you can't really, it's hard to clone across a gradient, a smooth gradient in the background. You end up with sort of a stubbled.
I've suffered through that.
Yeah, and so it's just a way of saying, you know what, I'm not going to fight it, and just replace the content because it's super easy.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool. And then could you use, on that mask that you made, could you use the refine mask a bit? You'd mentioned that earlier when we were talking.
Yeah, you could either, well, in this case, what I would probably do is probably just adjust, I basically would have adjusted it when I created it. I probably wouldn't use, refine edge to sort of clean it up. I did this sort of quick and dirty, so some of the edges are were a little aggressive. I probably would have pulled my opacity or with tolerance. I would have pulled my tolerance down so it didn't eat into the leaves quite as much.
Yeah.
And that feature has been in Photoshop since, gosh, so long, right? Way, way back.
It has been, but people don't talk about it too often.
Yeah, it's a great tool. It's I think that one was put in 1972.
Okay, I've been using Photoshop for 15 years, and it's a new one to me.
Yeah, it's what's old is new again. And all these other techniques of using a layer to create a mask.
Yeah.
That's been in there forever and ever as well. It used to work a little different when we had before you could select more than one layer, and we had the ability to just sort of drag and move masks wherever you wanted to. You needed to link your layers and then drag it to the new button and make sure it was linked to the right one, and it was even more crazy complex. But it's actually pretty easy.
I have a very spotty Photoshop education. It's incredibly spotty, and this fits on with what you're doing. How would I take that layer that you made and just duplicate it on another layer? Is there just a simple button I push to duplicate my layer mask?
Yeah, if you hold down the Option key, it'll
option and drag. Yeah.
Option and drag. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you. I knew there was a simple solution, but I've got holes in my holes in my training.
Yeah. So just dragging it moves it.
But dragging it moves it, and that's the problem. And then just Option will Okay, perfect.
Yeah, you have to hold the Option key down first. It's sort of order
Perfect.
of operations.
I appreciate that. It's simple, but it's the simple things that hold me up sometimes.
Absolutely. So that's
So,
my tip.
I was going to say, Jeff, your knowledge is not only deep, but very wide as well. How in the world do you keep up with not only all of this in Photoshop, but everything in Lightroom and everything in Elements, and then Ravel, and you mentioned some other programs that I don't even remember what you said. How do you do it?
It's very hard. You know, I do the same thing you guys do. I watch. I talk with the engineers. I mean, I have some inside tracks as well, but you know, I watch the same videos that you do, that Russell and Julianne do, or you know, the product managers for applications that I'm less familiar with. I'm most familiar with Photoshop, obviously, from working on the product for 10 years. But the Lightroom team, you know, being primarily in Minnesota, I get a lot of good knowledge just from sitting next door to those guys.
Well, that's great. I mean, you are just an incredible resource, and we're so lucky to have you tonight. I wish we could talk for another hour, but unfortunately, we're way over time now.
Yeah.
So if you want to unscreen share, and we'll say goodnight, your face instead of your screen. Do you remember how to do it? You just go over there and Google. Yeah.
I'm here.
There you are. Now we can see you.
Ah, a man with a big brain.
Yeah.
I like that.
I'll start with a thank you anyway before we
Yeah.
sign off. Thanks a lot, Jeff, for coming on and sharing the depth of your knowledge with us there. It's one, as I work in the background, I don't catch the whole show. So for those that don't know, this show is recorded, and you can catch it on the event page pretty much right after we're done as a rebroadcast, or it will be on. We're going to be putting it up on the Photoshop Show YouTube channel and the Photoshop Show page. So you can find the rebroadcasts there. If they're not there right away, they will get there. You just have to be a little patient.
Yep. And if you know, people want to interact with me directly, I am on Google+. I'm also on Twitter, obviously.
Can't hear you.
This is my username at adobe.com if people need to email me. Otherwise, you can just tweet at me or send me a message on Twitter.
What is your user? I didn't hear that part about your username.
Tranberry at adobe.com.
So J Tranberry without the Y is what you're saying.
Yep. Yep. Without the RY.
Well, that's very brave of you to share your email address.
I'm already. I get an enormous amount of email.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll let you go home. And I know you have wonderful children and a great family. I follow you on Facebook to hear all about them as well. And I'm so glad that I have the opportunity to know you. And I really appreciate what you do for everyone, for the whole user community out there. So thank you.
Thank you for what you guys do.
Much.
You guys are the people that are out there using it and sharing your knowledge, and that's that's important to the community. And it's if you watch my acceptance speech at the Photoshop World for the Photoshop Hall of Fame thing, you know, that's something that I wanted to really convey to people, was it's so important to the thing that makes the Photoshop community great is people like you who do shows like this and share your knowledge with other users and ask people to share their knowledge with other people. And you know, our shared success is the key, and keeping people creative, successful, and happy is key to everyone's success.
Well, you're doing it right, so thank you very much. And with that, I think we're going to...
I am a Photoshop geek.
All right.
I love it.
Hey, Dave.
That's wonderful.
There you go. Go back up there, Dave. I put you on there. Go back up.
Well, she's going to take a picture.
That's great. That's
There we go. Oh, I have to talk. There we go.
Cool.
Screenshot. Okay. Cool. Well, thanks, everybody. And don't forget, out there, if you're watching, to tune in 2 weeks. We'll have another episode of the Photoshop Show with another great guest. And, I'm so excited to bring together these great people from the industry with the users here on Google+. And I hope you'll all keep watching. So thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.